when I was 16, my dad and I and a couple of his friends and his girlfriend went on a hunting trip, and we started on our journey up into the mountains, and we pulled over and everybody gets out and they're kind of looking around for something hard, like a hard surface, like a book or something. And the next thing I know, they're dumping white powder on this Bible. When it got to my dad's turn, he cut his line in half and he did half and handed it to me and I did the other half. And it was like the best feeling I ever had in my whole life.
Well, Jim, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I remember we had some coffee and then just got to hear your story, and it was really incredible. So I wanted to be able to share that with everybody, and
You bet.
you were cool enough to want to share it too. So
You bet. I'd love to.
yeah, man. So yeah, you run the Celebration Recovery.
Celebrate Recovery in Cuna.
Yeah.
I'm the ministry leader there. We've been open for we're on our third year right now. Prior to that, I was at helped start the Celebrate Recovery in Middleton. So yeah, it's going good.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's kind of like a 12-step thing, but more faith-based, more Christian-based, correct?
Yep. Instead of it's basically the 12 steps that Alcoholics Anonymous uses or NA uses. We just have Jesus Christ as our Savior. So yeah, it's basically the same thing. We go through the same exact steps.
Because the 12 steps, they pretty much just say like a higher power rather than being specific of Jesus Christ.
You could have your doorknob as your higher power, and in AA, just whatever you choose to be your higher power, and we choose to use Jesus Christ as our higher power.
Yeah, I had another guy on here before, and he went through AA, and he said that it wasn't the same as when he just started believing from a higher power to Jesus Christ. Everything changed.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was for me. I spent years in AA, mostly forced to be in AA. I love AA. Don't get me wrong. I think it's an amazing program, and our program wouldn't exist if it wasn't for AA. But for me, all those years of relapse and it was because I wasn't following Jesus. Once that happened, it was just a game changer for me.
Yeah, it's huge, man. It's like Jesus is always knocking, but the door is only open from the inside. There's not an outside handle. Like you have to be the one to open that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, let's get into it. Like, where are you from?
I grew up in north central Idaho. I was born in Grangeville, Idaho. Grew up in a little town called Kuski. It's about 600 people. My dad lived there. My parents divorced when I was about 5 or 6. And my mom lived in Orfino, which is about 30 miles away. So I really just bounced back and forth between my parents about every other year, to be honest. I think a lot of it was, for me, after my parents divorced, that was how I could manipulate how I wanted to live. I'd go live with my dad because it was a lot freer and he was kind of a wild man. My mom worked for the Idaho Department of Corrections in Orfino at that time. So I'd go to her house when I wanted things to be a little more steady. But I just kind of bounced back and forth between them. Grew up in the small town world where it seemed like everybody drank a lot. The drug scene, I wasn't really in the drug scene yet. Even through high school. I mean, I did drugs in high school. That's where I started. But for the most part, it was just alcohol. Everybody I knew drank. Everything revolved around drinking. Even with especially my dad. My dad was a full-blown alcoholic, owned a bar, was a logger, liked to fight. He loved us kids a lot, but he had his own demons. My mom I would say she was probably an alcoholic too, but she was responsible, went to work every day. But all of our vacations, anything that we did, revolved around alcohol. So So by 14 years old, I would say I was definitely an alcoholic by then. Would drink every weekend. Um, and it affected my school and sports and things like that. When I was 16, my dad and I and a couple of his friends and his girlfriend went on a hunting trip um, in the backcountry, driving, drinking, and I remember we stopped at one of his friends' house as we were leaving town, and my dad went in the house, and I didn't really think anything of it. I was just waiting in the pickup, and we left there, and we started on our journey up into the mountains, and um, we pulled over, and um, everybody gets out, and they're kind of looking around for something hard, like a hard surface, like a book or something, and the only thing that they found was behind the guy's seat. He found an old Bible, and the next thing I know, they're dumping white powder on this Bible and chopping lines. And I was really in shock. I never knew that my dad did drugs, and
Using a Bible to do coke.
using meth.
Oh, meth.
Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, using a Bible. That didn't even hit me until until I became a Christian. I didn't really think anything of that, honestly. Um, but or the guy that was chopping the lines asked my dad how many lines to make, and he told him make 4 lines and make mine big. And when it got to my dad's turn, he cut his line in half, and he did half and handed it to me, and I did the other half, and it was like the best feeling I ever had in my whole life.
So your dad was the first one to introduce you to
Yeah,
meth?
yeah. And he didn't use drugs a lot. He used it to party with, like to keep drinking kind of thing. I had no clue, and most people that I grew up with didn't have a clue that my dad did drugs. They just thought he was an alcoholic. So that was kind of my first taste, and I was 16. But I loved it so much. I loved the feeling of it. Um, but my friends didn't use drugs. Um, people I hung out with didn't use drugs, so I didn't really see it again until after I got out of high school. I probably did it a handful of times, maybe from 16 until I was out of school,
Did your
and
dad ever let you have it again?
not with him. I don't. I remember other times, like I remember one time waking up. My dad was a pretty popular man where we grew up with, and um, especially in the bar crowd, and he liked to fight. He was really tough. And I remember one time waking up, and I was sleeping in his room, and he was single. Me and my brother lived there, and it was pretty common to have people over at our house really late at night. He'd close the bar and bring people home, and well, I heard people out in the kitchen, so I just walked over to the door and peeked out, and there was like this bale of marijuana sitting on our kitchen table, and they were weighing it out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was just shocked,
So your dad was also in
and
the
that was
like
probably only a week before the first time I used with him. Um, so
just a whole switch in that area of
yeah,
time then, huh?
yeah, it was, and Dad always let us drink with him. He didn't want us out running around drinking, but we could always drink around him. But that whole period of time was just kind of a shock for me. Um, I ended up moving to Portland right after high school for work, and once I got over there, I started, you know, hanging out with guys that used and kind of went down that meth thing. And meth at that time, this was the late '90s, was like it was very potent, way different than it was at toward the end of my using career. But um, and I became addicted to meth probably by 19. I was pretty addicted. A lot of times I just use it I buy some on Friday night, and I try to wind down by Sunday, and then just drink during the week, and then go right back at it. But then eventually it became more and more.
So you always wanted to carry a buzz.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, for sure. Um, but most of my family didn't know that I used at that time. It wasn't until I was in my probably mid-20s before people around me knew that I used. A lot of my friends, didn't use. It was I had a kind of a secret friends over here, and then the ones I grew up with over here, and they didn't really know. I think they wondered why I was able to stay up all night and drink with them, but so yeah. And then it was at that time I met this gal in Portland, and we got married, and me and her used a lot. We decided to move to Idaho, and we'd only been married a few months, and I came to Idaho to find work, to Boise, where my mom was. She had transferred with the Department of Corrections down to Boise and was a warden at the time. And so I came to Boise, and while I was here looking for work, um, I just had this feeling something was up with her, and she admitted that she was sleeping with one of my friends. So
Your
that
mom,
was
the warden at the time, was sleeping with one of you.
no, my wife, my current wife, that
Oh,
was
okay.
still in Portland. And no, that'd be a heck of a
Yeah, I was
story.
like, what?
So I was kind of trying to get my life straight. That's why I'd come to Boise, and that just kind of spun me off the deep end, and then I kind of just traveled around. I went back up north Idaho, and I quit the job that I had here, and just ended up bouncing around. My uncle lived over in Seattle, so I went over to Seattle and moved in with him. And then there wasn't meth really in Seattle at that time, like it was prior to where I'd been. And I got addicted to cocaine, um, which was even a worse addiction, like wanting it all the time. Um,
What was the difference for you between meth and cocaine?
um, the meth or the cocaine was for me. It got me that higher high that I wanted, but it just didn't last as long. Um, and I could tell, I still had the frame of mind where I didn't want to be doing what I was doing, but, um, but I was addicted. And so, but I still had that little bit in me that knew that this wasn't the life that I wanted to live. So I would just, again, pack up and move and try to move away from it. So I'd move back to Idaho, and it was just a matter of time before I would get back into the drugs. It always, to me, thinking back on it, it always seemed like the alcohol is what would do it. Because I never relapsed on drugs if I wasn't drunk. But the second I would start drinking, it might not have been the first week or the second week, but eventually I'd get drunk enough that I'd get back on the drugs, and then at that point it was just on. Um, I ended up um, back in Idaho, met another gal in a bar. That's my kids' mom. I have twins that are 20 years old, um, and we ended up getting married pretty quickly. But we drank all the time. So I kind of stopped using. She was a school teacher, um, or I'd use, once a month where she wouldn't know. She never knew that I used until the kids were probably 4 or 5 years old. But I always kind of had that secret life that she didn't know about.
How'd your
Um,
wife find out that you were using?
um, she found a light bulb that I was smoking meth out of, and she knew there was something up. She felt like there was something going on, and then she found a light bulb, and then we split up for a while, and then got back together. And then one night I was out in the living room. It was like 2 in the morning, and I was still drinking. And she came out, and I was snorting diet pills off of the coffee table. And
Diet pills, like
yeah,
ephedrine or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so then obviously I left, and we ended up getting divorced. We have a really good relationship now, um, especially. Well, I'll get to that part later, but we have a good relationship now. We don't talk a lot, but when we do, it's very civil, and our kids are amazing.
What was
Um,
it like the first time you found out that you're going to be a dad, let alone finding out it was going to be
you
twins?
know that was a really hard time in my life, because my kids were born in October, and my dad died in December, the end of December. So he got to meet him when they were born, and we went up and visited him about a couple weeks before he passed away. He was having a hard time, and he called me crying, which he'd never done before. And me and my dad stayed close, you know, up until that point. He was an alcoholic, and he was trying to quit drinking. He'd gone to rehab a couple times and was trying to quit, but he 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 ended up relapsing. And I don't know that we knew then what we do now about overdose. I think that he probably overdosed on drugs. He died had a heart attack in the middle of the night. He was 47. I was 27, and the kids were just a few months old. And that's when I kind of really spiraled with their mom, drinking all the time and snorting diet pills and um, doing meth. But yeah, so she ends up leaving me, and I'm back to couch surfing and living the chaos life in the drug world. And I still wasn't all the way into that world yet, but that's just when things started to go that way. And I ended up in drug court. I ended up getting arrested on a possession charge in Caldwell. And I went through drug court, or I got into drug court. Excuse me. And it was really good. I had restitution that I had to pay. So before I could get out of drug court, I had to pay that restitution. And it was quite a bit of money. And um, so I ended up being in drug court for almost 3 years. And I was sober the whole time I was in drug court. And I learned a lot. I was going to AA all the time, and, um, you know, was chairing meetings, and things were just really good. And then I graduated. When I was in drug court, I had got introduced to Celebrate Recovery, but I didn't go very much. I didn't have a relationship with God at all yet. Um, but drug court keeps you really busy. And I was in Ada County Drug Court. It's a really tough one, and they keep you really busy. And it was what I needed at that time in my life. I learned a lot about addiction, through the classes I was doing, but I still didn't have a relationship with God at that point. And once I graduated, I ended up meeting this gal that was in recovery as well while I was in drug court. We ended up getting married right toward the end of my drug court. And she had a lot of mental health issues too that she was battling. And so we get married, and we have a house in Nampa, and we're doing pretty good. And she starts drinking again, and I wasn't. But within a few months, I had a bad day at work, came home, grabbed a beer out of the fridge, and that night I had an old dealer drop me meth off in my mailbox. Um,
After just one drink.
one day of drinking, yeah. And I sponsor a lot of guys now that are battle with drugs and but still think they can drink. And I know that I couldn't, and I don't know anybody that really can. Either there may be a few out there, but um, once you start clouding the judgment in your brain, um, it all it takes is a bad day, and you're gonna relapse. That's how it was for me anyway. And when they say that you start out worse than when you stopped, for me that was very true. Um, they talk about alcoholism and drug addiction being a progressive disease. It keeps getting worse even if you're sober, and that's how it was when I relapsed. I was deeper in the chaos of the drug life within weeks than I had ever been. And this time, I knew people from drug court um, that had relapsed, and now they're in the drug world. So it was almost like I had, 10 times more contacts than I ever had. And that's what I ended up, getting a hold of those people. And pretty quick, I lost my job, lost my house, lost our vehicles. And
Over what course of time would you say?
I would say within 6 months. Yeah. I had a business. I had a traffic control business here in town. My parents had partnered with me and another guy and his parents. And once they found out I was using, they didn't want me to be a part of the business anymore and bought me out. And that money was gone, within a month. And so then I had never really sold drugs at that point. Maybe part of a bag to help somebody or whatever, but I wasn't a dealer. And within a few months, I was dealing drugs, mostly to support my habit. But then it almost became an addiction, just like the drug use. That chaotic life and living in hotels, and you'd wake up in the morning, know you have to check out, not have enough money for the next day, so you go out and hustle all day long to be able to afford another bag and afford another hotel room. And it was just day after day after day. For several years, it was like that.
At what point did you realize that you needed to start selling drugs or that you wanted to sell drugs?
I remember like telling my wife at the time, so now we're on wife number 3, that's what I was going to do. Like, I'm just going to, I'm going to sell drugs and I'm going to be the best drug dealer I can be. And just thinking back on that, it just makes me so sick.
Was it just meth at that point?
Yeah,
Or
meth. Well, it started out as meth. I didn't, I never liked marijuana because it stunk and I always thought cops can smell it and they're going to search you. So I never did marijuana. I did. Plus, I like to be wide awake. Um, but it eventually turned into heroin and pills. Fentanyl came right when I kind of got out of using. I'll have 9 years sober in a couple weeks. So that's kind of when fentanyl started coming out. There's no doubt I'd have been dead by now if I was still using. But so yeah, the um, heroin came, you know, in that period of my life where I would just buy it and sell it because I didn't do it, and that was really the only thing I could make money on. But it was already a dark world that I was living in. But once I inserted heroin, it became the darkest point in my life.
like the people that you were
The
around at
people
that
I was
point?
around, yeah, because they'll do anything to get high, and and it was just sad to see. I was just having this conversation last night in one of my groups that I still think about the young, 20-year-old guys that were just starting out doing drugs that I'd sell drugs to, and then, I know some of those guys aren't around anymore, and some of them are in prison. Um, I see a few in the recovery rooms in the valley, but that still just breaks my heart that I had a part of that. Um,
Did they recognize you?
yeah, yeah, and now a lot of people do now in the recovery world because I'm all over the place when it comes to trying to help people in recovery. And that's one of the reasons why I do it, because you know, I know it's possible that we can get out of that hole. Um, but it's also maybe some guilt too, because I feel guilty about getting people addicted to drugs. So I ended up, I had contacts in North Idaho because that's where I grew up. And I ended up, um, I was still homeless, but I was never lacking a place to stay at that point because people wanted me around because I always had drugs. But I ended up transporting drugs back and forth from North Idaho to South Idaho. Um, and was, you know, prison gangs and cartels and things like that is where I would get my drugs. So I'm hanging around with people that really would kill me in a heartbeat.
Cartels here in Idaho?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Who would have thought of that?
yeah. They're all over here. Yeah,
Wow.
and so I was living in a dangerous world, and so I'm transporting back and forth, and once you're in that point of that world, you got to worry about people ripping you off and taking what you have. And so I was paranoid because I'm high. And, and I'm at a hotel in Nampa, the Super 8. And, let me back up for just a second. There was a woman this whole time that would send me Facebook messages, and I grew up with her kids in Orfino, and her husband used to go into the prison and do prison ministry, and she would message me almost every day. At this point, people knew what I was doing, but she would message me almost every day and tell me she's praying for me, or she'd send me a scripture, and I would look at it, and I might like just scan it, but I wasn't taking any of it in.
So this woman was from your childhood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And her name was Jan. And so I'm at the Super 8, and I'm paranoid as all get out. I have a lot of drugs on me. And I'm with a girl and this other guy and his girlfriend, and we're in a hotel, and I'm like peeking out the windows. I'm like what you'd see in the movies, I'm like paranoid. And so I do a late checkout because there's like weird stuff going on in the parking lot in my head anyway. And the guy and his girlfriend leave, and the girl's still with me. And we end up going down to the vehicle to leave, and I'm like still freaked out. And I say, I got to go back in one more time. So I go back in, and when I come back out, I see this black SUV driving through the parking lot. And so I kind of ignore it, and it drives off. Well, I put something in the back of the vehicle, and I start walking to get in the driver's seat, and I hear my name, and I recognized his voice immediately, but I hadn't seen him in like 20 years, since high school. But it was Ryan Bonner, um, and I knew Ryan was a cop in Nampa, and so I turn around, go back, and I talk to him, and he's in just a black SUV, tinted windows. We start talking about our families and this and that. Well, that's Jan's son, and he's a cop for Nampa PD at that time. He was a liaison for the FBI, and so I'm freaking out inside, like I'm thinking I'm going down, And like I said, there's a lot of drugs in the car, and we BS for a while, and then he's asked me how I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm doing really good. Me and the last wife are breaking up. We're getting divorced. Things are going really good. And he's like, oh, okay. And he said, at the end of the conversation, he's like, well, Jim, if you need any help, just reach out to me. Like, I don't think things are going all that good for you. And he gives me his card, and he writes down Ron Carpenter Jr. on the back of it. And he's like, check this guy out. Look, listen to some of his podcasts or his YouTubes. And he's a pastor. I was like, all right. So I get back in the car, and I'm freaked out. And I go drop this girl off, and I head to Ontario, rent a hotel room, and I am freaked. And I stayed there for a couple weeks. I have stuff that is in my vehicle that I'm supposed to deliver that other people have given me money for, but I'm just freaked out because I don't know if that was just a chance meeting or if he's giving me a hint to stop doing what I'm doing type of thing. And so I go to this hotel, I stay high for a couple weeks, and I decide that I'm going to try and get clean. And I start listening to this Ron Carpenter Jr. while I'm sitting in that hotel room, and I just listen. I watch video after video after video of these sermons. And I would say that I was never not a believer, but God was never in my life, neither on my mom's side or my dad's side of the family. And so as I'm listening to this, I just get more open and more open, and it was like the first time that I felt like there was a Holy Spirit that was trying to guide me in a direction. And that was the beginning of it. That was the summer of 2015. I end up staying in it, but not all the way in it. I'm kind of freaked out. I don't have my connections anymore because I've ripped, I didn't deliver some drugs, and so
Staying in the drug world, is that what you're talking
yeah.
about? Okay.
Well, I end up in a storage unit in Nampa, 24/7 storage is what it was called, or 24-hour storage. It's over off 11th in Nampa, and I'm living in a storage unit. And at that point, I'm really just like buying and selling things on Marketplace and Craigslist to support my habit. Not really selling drugs. I'm kind of out of that at that point. And it's the winter of Snowmageddon, and
Mm.
it's like really cold outside. And I'm living in the storage unit, and I'm like really wanting to die. So I end up getting some meth, and I'm in there, and I'm freezing. I have this electric electric cord that goes to an electrical box that's like 150 feet away that runs underneath my door. And I got this hot plate, but it's so cold I couldn't get warm. And I remember thinking, I'm gonna do as much meth as I can, and I'm just gonna try and kill myself. And so I load this needle up with as much meth as I can get in, as strong as I can make it, and I go to give myself, what I thought would be my final shot, and it froze, and it wouldn't come out of the needle. And I remember just crying out to God, like, Lord, if you're real, just let me die or help me. And and I hadn't slept for quite a while at that point, but I remember it was just the weirdest thing, like this warmth come over me, and I fell asleep. Um, and when I woke up, I wasn't froze to death, but that next morning, I walked to the Boise Rescue Mission Lighthouse in Nampa, and I had breakfast there, and and I just remember how nice everybody was there. I didn't know what was going to happen in the future, but I didn't think the Boise Rescue Mission had anything to do with my future. But it was my first time walking into a homeless shelter, and so I make it through the winter. That next spring, I'm still using. I'm trying to work, um, but I'm like half in with the Christian thing. Still homeless, but I don't want to use anymore. It's not fun. It's like miserable. It's the only reason I'm doing it is just to stay awake, like to make it through the day, and I decided that I'm going to try and go to the Allenbaugh House. I'd been to the Allenbaugh House before. I don't know if you're familiar with the Allenbaugh House, but it's a free clinic detox center in Boise, and I'd been there once before, um, and they helped get me off of drugs. So I have my aunt or my cousin come pick me up, and she takes me there. And at that point in my mind, I was all in on getting clean. I just didn't really know how to do it, and I didn't have any money to go anywhere to like a full rehab. So I go to the Allenbaugh House, and I don't know, day 4 or day 5, you can stay there for a week. And day 4 or day 5, I'm starting to freak out. Like, where am I going to go? I can't go back to the storage unit, or I'm just going to get high again. Um, that storage unit had more drug dealers in it than any place I'd ever been.
That also stayed in there?
Yeah, it was like a hotel city in the storage units.
Really?
It was crazy.
Is that a common thing? I've never
I
heard of
don't,
that.
it is there. Yeah, I think so. But most places don't let you they'll let you hang out there during the day, but not all night. But so I'm in the Allenbaugh House, and one day I'm walking across the kitchen living area, and there's a paper on the ground, and I pick it up, and it's an application to the Boise Rescue Mission New Life program. And I didn't really think anything of it. I just set it on a table, go sit down, and as I'm sitting there, there's a TV up on the wall, and Reverend Roscoe from the Boise Rescue Mission is on a commercial. And at that point, I just kind of closed my eyes, and I'm like, okay, God is trying to tell me something. And so I filled the application out to the Rescue Mission program. At that point, I just thought it's a place that I can go and I'm not going to be outside and maybe I can stay sober for longer than, a few days. And the man that received the application from at the Boise Rescue Mission had worked with my mom at the Department of Corrections for like 20 years. So he knew her and he knew about me. I didn't know who he was, but so he accepted me into the program. And so when I left the Allenbaugh house, I didn't have to go back to the storage units. I got a ride from the Allenbaugh house straight to the Boise Rescue Mission. And that was the beginning of like my whole new life. Um, I remember walking through the doors the first time and just how inviting everybody was, and it reminded me of the first time I'd been there, how nice they were, and there were some guys in the program. The program at the lighthouse that time wasn't very big, like it is down in Boise, but um, I just remember how inviting those guys were that were in the program, and they kind of, it was a weekend, so there wasn't a lot of staff there, and they kind of showed me where my bed was and got me food and it was just, they were just really inviting. I'll never forget how, for the first time in a long time, I felt like people wanted me to be around them. And then I started the program, and the program's not, it's not easy. I don't know what the statistics are on the people that start but don't finish. I know they're not real high, but the statistics on the people that finish the program that 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 continue on in life and do good things is very high. Their success rate on their graduates is amazing. Um, but you do a lot of work around the mission, a lot of service work, a lot of drug and alcohol classes, and then discipleship. They you got Bible studies and people, pastors from the outside come in and do stuff. You can't leave and you can't work. Um, they get 4 different phases. That first phase is kind of a blackout where you don't have contact with anybody, and then you might have an hour where you can leave with another programmer that's in a later stage than you. And I remember it got tough once, and I was only a couple months in, and like the same guy that got me into the program, um, he was one of my counselors, and I told him, I think I'm going to leave. I've got some pretty good time of sobriety under me. I need to get out there and get a job and support my kids and pay my bills and, be an adult. And he just kind of looks at me and he starts laughing and he's like, Jim, when is the last time that you did any of those things? Let's pick up the phone right now and let's call your kids, people you owe money to, and let's ask them if they would rather you stay here and finish this program or if they'd rather you go out and get a job. And that hit me. It's like, and it was a little embarrassing, but he was right. For, most of my life, I hadn't done any of those things. My kids are like 12 or 13 at this point, and actually they're about 11. And my daughter's talking to me. My son doesn't want anything to do with me, but me and my daughter are making contact, and she's come and seen me a couple times. The ex-wife is talking to me. She was really good through this whole thing. She wanted me to be around the kids, but she never wanted me to be around the kids when I was high. So, but she always wanted the kids to be a part of my life or me to be a part of their life. And so grateful for that. But so I locked into the program and locked into the discipleship part of it probably the most. I've read the Bible all the way through, plus, a lot more while I was in that program. And I remember the very first time, besides that time in the storage unit where I felt the Holy Spirit. At that time, I didn't have any clue that's what it was. But I remember I was reading this book by Francis Chan, and in there, and I'm in group in this classroom, but I'm reading this book, and and it says in there, the same Jesus Christ who died on the cross, um, or the same Holy Spirit that that was with Jesus Christ when he died on the cross is the same Holy Spirit that's in you right now. And it hit me like, and that's when I felt the overwhelming love of the Holy Spirit. And the program was just really good. While I was in there, like I said earlier, I'd gone to Celebrate Recovery before, but I never really. It was just another group. I was always wondered why people were happy about being in a group on a Friday night and not in a bar. But so the very first night I'm there was a Friday night, and we go to 10 Mile Christian Church for Celebrate Recovery, and and we went every week. So for a year, every week I went to Celebrate Recovery. I was able to go through the steps while I was there. Um, the way that Celebrate Recovery does the steps is you meet once a week. There's like 26 or 27 lessons. So it takes you basically a year to go through the steps. So while I'm at the mission, going through the New Life program, at the same time I'm at Celebrate Recovery, going through the steps, and it was just perfect the way that worked out. I ended up graduating the mission program
How long did that take?
about a year.
Okay.
Yeah. I was able to start working. I think I still lived at the mission. It's still I had a few classes to do still, but I was able to start working. I think after 9 months, um, got a really good job right after while I was in there. But they after I graduated the program, they have transitional housing. There's apartments on the boulevard here in Nampa, and then they got a bunch in Boise too. But so I moved into the transitional housing apartments. Was living on my own for the first time, and yeah, life was really good. And I remember getting my first car, and but the rescue mission was with me through every step of all of that. I love the rescue mission so much and what they do for people without government funding, without you know, it's all donation based, and I still am plugged in with the mission. I try to help out there, whenever I can, or if they need me. Tomorrow I'll be on the radio at 7:30 with Kevin Miller at Walmart there in Nampa. Um, but yeah, and if I ever need anything, all I got to do is call them. It's almost like graduating at college, and you always have a place to go back to. And I don't know, I really appreciate them. And while I was there, I attended 10 Mile Christian, and one of the pastors there, Nick Duffel, he invited me to come to his home group at his house. So I got to know Nick really well, and his family really well. And Nick ended up becoming a pastor out in Middleton, and we would send messages back and forth. He's like, "Yeah, I really think we should start a Celebrate Recovery out here." And I'm still attending CR, but I'm not in any kind of ministry lead. And I end up getting, I buy a motorhome and end up renting a piece of land from a guy out in Caldwell, right next to Middleton. So I end up starting to go to church where Nick's at, and he has a staff member that wants to start a CR, and so we do it. We start a CR in Middleton, and started it from scratch. So I had to walk those people through the steps before we can start, and so that's kind of where my ministry leader started, was at the Middleton Celebrate Recovery, and I was there for almost 3 years. And then I met this amazing woman that lived in Cuna. We became Facebook friends. Somebody that we were mutual friends with on Facebook said, "You guys should meet." And then if I think she sent me a message, and she says I didn't respond right away, but um, a few months later we start dating, and she's an amazing, amazing woman of God. She grew up, going to Baptist school, and she's never been in this part of the crazy chaos world that I was a part of. She's never even seen drugs before. So we ended up dating, I end up moving out to Cuna, and we get married, and then the church that I was attending in Cuna wanted to start a Celebrate Recovery, and I was still traveling back and forth to Middleton twice a week, and that was a lot. So I always told her, though, until God tells me that that chapter's closed, I got to keep doing it. And then when that opportunity came to where we could start a Celebrate Recovery in Cuna, I think that was when God told me that chapter closed. So that's when we started the one in Cuna, and we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary, which is really cool. And we just keep plugging away.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What was it like when you first got out of that program, the Boise mission, and you were on your own? How did you avoid the temptation, or any kind of? Did you have any kind of temptation, or would you already worked past that?
I think from the time that I gave myself to Jesus, He's at the mission. He has taken any urge to use away. I don't put myself around drugs, obviously. I'm around alcohol if I go to a function and people are drinking, but it never crosses my mind as, man, I wish I could have one of those. So that part has been taken away. It used to be really hard, especially driving around certain parts of Nampa or driving over on Vista and Boise. I would get that gut ache feeling. Now I drive it and I don't even think about it. But I avoided those areas completely. I just wouldn't go there. Um, so it's not been as hard as I would think it was, but I owe all that to Jesus, because I think he took that urge to use away. Now I still have issues with dreams. Like, it used to be a couple times a week. Right now it's like 3-4 times a week. I dream of using meth. I don't think about, or I don't dream about drinking. It's mostly about drug use or the chaos world that I lived in. Like, it'll just be like a anxious dream. And I've been really praying hard about that, and for God to take that away. I talked about this in group last night. It's like, I don't know if maybe it's God using that to remind me. I don't know, but it's definitely, that's probably the only maybe PTSD part of it that I have. But it's been pretty easy, and a lot of it I think is because I stayed the same things that I was doing in the mission. I'm doing 9 years later. I still go to meetings every week. I still help other alcoholics and drug addicts, and I still talk about my story, um, because I think it not only helps other people, but it helps me stay grounded in recovery.
Yeah, I think that once you help someone else go through something, it also holds you accountable. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
absolutely.
I think about that kind of like with my own fitness area of like I need to make sure that I'm still doing good if I'm going to be helping others. I have to set that example, or just anything. I mean, even with like being a parent, like we have to make sure that we're holding that line
Yes.
because we have people watching us at that point. You know?
Yeah. 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 Nobody wants to go work out with a big old fat guy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So you just kind of like need to hold that, but um, that's amazing, man. It sounds like you had such an amazing life. I mean, it makes sense in reverse, obviously, but going forward, you're like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
You know, that's just the paradox of life, unfortunately, is that you never know like how long this hurt is gonna last, or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, like I was kind of thinking about that. I've been doing a lot of stairs lately for the show that I'm in, and right now I'm doing 60 minutes, and it's like it's not so bad that I know it's gonna stop at 60 minutes. But if my coach were to just tell me like get on the stairs and go till I tell you to stop, and he knows it's 60 minutes, but I don't know, and I'm just like, man, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, and it's like it's just those times in life where you don't know how long this is gonna last,
Yeah.
that it just is like, is this worth it?
Uh-huh. I agree. I think about too, when I was younger, I always just wanted to be happy. So I would do things to make me happy, whether it be drugs or women or alcohol. And now I was just telling my wife this the other night. Now it's like I just want peace. Like, peace makes me happy. Not being in chaos makes me happy. I don't have to like search for things to make me happy. I just need to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And thank God and when I say my wife is a saint, she is truly a saint, and she grounds me, and I'm so grateful for her. And she's got three wonderful kids that are just like mine, and so we have 5 kids together, 2 grandkids. Um, so it's a lot of fun. In that world, I worry about my kids, because their mom enjoyed alcohol and their dad's an addict, and so, but just got to give that to God. I think I worry more about the things I worry about most now is just salvation for my kids, that they know Jesus and they don't have to go down the same road that I went down, or the road that I see so many people go down, and have to hit bottom before they realize that there's a God that loves them. And that's a fear that, I pray about a lot, as I want them to be in heaven, when, one day with me. So
What's the best way for a parent to get their kids to believe in Christ with their heart and not just because they're being told to?
I wish I knew the answer to that, because I think all we can do is give them the tools, to make that decision on their own. And I think, I know too many people that were forced to go to either church or Christian school or whatever, that now have nothing to do with God, because they were, had to go to church 3 times a week. I think we just give them those tools and let them make that decision. But it's not easy. Me and my wife talk about it all the time. But I think everybody has to. I know for me, I had to go my own road, for me to realize it. But the thing that was lacking for me was I knew nothing about God. I remember I had a neighbor that was a pastor, when we lived in town, and my dad owned a bar and was a partier. So they looked across the fence at us and thought, "Oh my gosh!" And we looked across the fence at them that thought, "Oh, those are the Bible thumpers." And but I remember they had like this family come one time. We live right by the river, and this boy kind of cornered me over in the park when I didn't have any friends or family around, and asked me if I'd ever been saved before. And that was probably my first interaction with somebody that was a Christian. And I was interested, and I listened to him, and he did a sinner's prayer with me, but I had no clue what it was. I wish that my parents had given me those tools. I don't know that I would have taken them, but I wish they would have given them to me. I thank God for Ryan Bonner and his mom. His mom she came to my graduation at the Boise Rescue Mission. It was at Timaha Christian. She came all the way down from Orfino. She had cancer, and she's passed away from that cancer. But she came all the way down. She was the only person I had there. My family wasn't talking to me yet. She stood on stage with me, and she was so proud of me, um, for finding Jesus, and getting sober. And Ryan and I talk to this day. He's still a cop for Nampa PD. He doesn't work with the drug task force anymore, but he's a patrol cop with Nampa PD, and we still talk. Um, if he, and we've never honestly talked about, were you there just by happenstance, or were you there to give a warning? I feel like he was probably there. God put him there to give me a warning. It wasn't anything else. Um, but yeah, he's a great dude and a godly man. And if it wasn't for him, who knows how much longer I would have been astray. God just puts people in places at certain times for certain people, and I try to remember that as I do my walk every day. I'm really busy with work. I'm really busy with kids. I'm really busy with recovery, but I have to remind myself that God is putting me in a restaurant to talk to this person, or putting me there for somebody to talk to me. I feel like He uses us all the time to do that kind of stuff. We just rarely see it. And so I have to make a conscious effort to remember to stay open to that, because I think we can do powerful things for God. We can be his hands and feet if we allow that to happen.
After you had those couple first experiences with the Holy Spirit, what do you think got you closer where you could listen to that and hear that more clearly? Was it just being more in the Word, and when you actually read the Bible, throughout the
Absolutely.
back and
Absolutely. And I'm a news junkie, like bad. It's probably my addiction these days. But I have to, if I'm listening to podcasts with godly men on it, or I'm picking up my Bible, doing my devotions, that brings me closer to the Holy Spirit. I can feel him more. If I, he's showing me signs and wonders throughout the day. But if I'm not doing those things, I don't see those signs and wonders. I don't see those people that I'm supposed to interact with. So it's a hard balance when we get busy in life. I will say I was probably in more tune with the Holy Spirit that first couple years um, of sobriety because I was so buried in the Bible. As life's gotten busier, I think, like I said, I have to make that conscious effort to stay in tune. And it's really shouldn't be an effort. It should be the first thing that I want to do is is have that morning devotion, but it's not always easy. Um, I think the other part for me is being around people in recovery that are fresh off the street, um, whether it be in the mission or at Celebrate Recovery. When somebody comes in for the first time, it reminds me how much work it takes to stay sober and to do what God wants us to do. It's not always easy.
yeah, those people that are fresh off the street, how do you get them to be open to Jesus Christ?
Um, that's I wish I had a high success rate. Um, it's I try to give them tools just like I would my kids. Um, be open to phone calls. Be open to help them. I have a guy that just texts me for a ride to go do a UA, and I can tell usually the person that's like I was that needs to escape from the immediate danger or circumstance that they're in versus the person that really truly wants to get sober. And I still feel like they're both important to disciple. Um, but most of them aren't ready yet. I don't think.
Do you think they're not ready because they haven't hit a true rock bottom?
Yeah. 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 And because I try to get people to go into that program at the Boise Rescue Mission, and I've gotten a lot of people. I got my own brother in there, who I'll talk about in a second, but um, that they go in and they were like me that time that I told my counselor I wanted to leave, um, because they want to go work or they want to, they have other things they have to do. When in reality, the most important for the most important thing for them to do is to find a relationship with God and to take care of themselves because we can't take care of anybody if we're messed up. And so that part's hard to try to convince somebody to do that. It's hard to convince somebody to take a year off of work, but I've made more money in the 9 years that I've been sober than I did in the previous 30, all put together. So sacrifice at the beginning is way worth it in the end,
That's got to be a
especially
hard,
for your salvation.
yeah. Well, that's also got to be a hard theory for a drug user to use because they're always chasing that short-term
Yeah,
gratification.
exactly.
So to say, no, this is
Yeah,
going to be like a long-term thing.
yeah,
They're just looking for that quick fix, that quick high, that quick money,
for sure.
and so for them that it's hard to even fathom.
Yeah,
This is going to take a year.
it's really easy for the ones that are on rock bottom though, and I can tell those people when I see them.
What's those usually like? They've lost their kids in custody, or like what's usually something that's
They've lost it all. Yeah, they've lost it all, and they don't want. I think. Sorry, drug court helped me in this one way too. Is I had a counselor tell me you're never going to have fun after you go through these classes. You're never going to have fun when you get high again. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but they were right. Once you know what it does to your body, what it's doing to your family, what it's doing to your friends, and unless you have zero conscious at all, um, it's not fun anymore. Um, so, and I can tell when I meet those people that they're only doing it because they're addicted to it. They're not doing it because it's fun.
Yeah. What was one of the most impactful things that you learned during drug court? Did they ever talk about like overdoses and what that does to your family, or like
Yeah,
people that?
drug court. The most important thing I learned was accountability because if you lie at all or you use it all, you're going to get caught. Drug courts, a lot of people say it's really easy. You just got to not do drugs. That's not really true. Um, they're testing you in honesty and things like that. I remember I was maybe a month into drug court, and I um, green cards are the cards that you get signed when you go to an AA meeting, and I was on 90 meetings in 90 days, and it wasn't easy. I made minimum wage. I worked at McDonald's at the mall back then. I lived in a little studio apartment in Boise that I don't remember, paid $700 a month for or whatever, but and child support took half my money. So I made like $2.50 an hour. But there are no excuse program. Like you will be on time for your drug test or you'll go to jail. Well, I forged my green card and got caught, and they threw me in jail for I think 2 weeks, and were debating on whether to kick me out of the program or not. And I was looking at 3 to 5 years in prison at that point. So I really wanted to stay. And so I learned my lesson pretty quick. Like, I'm not going to lie. And I knew I couldn't use there because I'd seen too many people get in trouble for using. So I had made it up in my mind that I wasn't going to use until I got out of drug court. Never in my mind did I think I was going to be sober forever. That was probably the difference between drug court and the mission program. I had made the decision that I couldn't use ever again. There, I made the decision that I couldn't use while I was in that program. Um, I think the hardest thing that I've dealt with since being sober though is the fentanyl crisis. Um, all the people that I used to use with that got into to opiates, um, a lot of them are dead. My own brother, he became addicted to pain pills when we were in our 20s. He had a good life. He had a wife and 2 kids, and he had a back injury. Got addicted to oxys, and and then smoked a lot of marijuana. Became very paranoid. He's one of those people that he'd smoke marijuana and just get paranoid, and he ends up homeless too, on the streets up in Spokane and Lewiston. Um, and after I got sober, I got him into the New Life program at the Boise Rescue Mission, and he had excuses why he couldn't finish it. Ends up homeless in Boise. Um, he ends up in Grangeville, same place. I ended up getting in trouble toward the end of my drug use, but he ends up there, and I wrote the judge a letter and said, you saved my life by allowing me to do this program at the Boise Rescue Mission instead of having to go back up there and face consequences. And I'm asking you to make my brother go to a program. And so he sentenced him to the Union Gospel Mission in Spokane, or in Seattle. And I sent him up money for a bus ticket. The sheriff's office took him to the bus station. He got on the bus and he never went to the mission. He ended up on the streets of Seattle, and in 2022, November 2nd of 2022, um, he overdosed on fentanyl in Seattle. And I got a phone call that evening. Um, he was still alive. They'd got him back alive, but he was in ICU. And so my mom and I flew over, and they did the cooling of the body and trying to do all this stuff to see if he had any brain activity, and he didn't. So we decided to. Um, they used his body parts for other people, and we decided to let him go. And um, I didn't have much information on where he was living or anything like that. And he had some things in his pocket. I remember walking out onto and I knew fentanyl was bad. It was bad here, but it was really bad there. And I walked out onto the parking garage, and I'm overlooking the city of Seattle, and I can see the football stadium and the baseball stadium and the beautiful sound. And then I looked down along the freeway, and it was just squalor, like 2 feet of trash and people digging through the trash and people shooting up and smoking pills. And it was awful. Um, One of the things in his pocket it was a card for like daily work. And it was the same address as where he died at, or as where or where the ambulance picked him up at. Um, so I think he was doing daily work. He was probably there. It was like 4 a.m. He was probably there waiting for it to start. Smoke some pills. He still had them all in his pocket. When I got his clothes back after he passed away, I drove back here. My mom flew and I drove, and they gave me all his bags of clothing and stuff, and I just threw it in the back of the pickup. And I ended up getting pulled over in Washington for speeding and didn't think anything of it. I get home, and first thing I did was I took the bags and I went over to the garbage can, and I opened it up, and it's just filled with drugs, like foils and pins and I'd gotten pulled over in Washington
Oh my
with all this
gosh.
stuff on me, and I didn't even know it.
That would have been a fun one to explain.
Oh my gosh, thank God. And but yeah, he was full blown. And then since before that and after that, I can't count how many funerals I've gone to. One of them was a guy from the Boise Rescue Mission program I graduated with. He died from a fentanyl overdose. Wonderful family he had. He had a good job. He was a chef here in Nampa, and that was a really hard funeral to go to too. I ran into his dad at the Christmas banquet for the rescue mission, and I went up and gave him a hug, and he just bawled. And it was his youngest son, and but watching what that's done, it's done nothing but renew my want to help people get off of drugs. Especially fentanyl, it's killing so many people. It's gotten a little bit better the last couple of years, but it's still really bad. And one of the things that Celebrate Recovery started is a fentanyl liaison for handing out. We hand out the Narcan. I have cases of Narcan that I can give out to people, and some states are different. I don't want to be the person that says it's okay to take all these items so that when you're using, you can save yourself. But I use it more to give to people that are walking down the street that see somebody overdosing.
Yeah.
The harm reduction part of it's a little hard for me to grasp. I don't think it's okay for us to tell people to go, you can use, and this will help save you when you're using,
Right.
versus, giving the public, I pack fentanyl everywhere I go. So that if it,
Narcan.
yeah, Narcan, or I'm sorry, I said fentanyl. Yeah. Narcan everywhere I go. Definitely not fentanyl. Yeah.
What do you think about those areas though that they are like handing out the needles and those different things like that so they can be, I don't know, they're trying to stop the spread of different diseases? Or I understand like the Narcan, that makes sense for sure, but like
Yeah, I think it's horrible. And even test strips so you can test your drugs to make sure they're okay to do.
like so they're not laced with fentanyl or something.
Yeah. I hand out test strips all the time, but I hand them out to parents. Like if you find something in somebody's bedroom and you want to find out if it's drugs or not, here's some test strips so you can do that. I don't hand them out to drug addicts. I am a drug addict, was an active drug addict. I'm going to manipulate, and I'm going to lie, and I'm going to steal, and I'm going to destroy everybody around me to get what I want. So I do not give them money. I don't give them, I'll give them food. I'll give them a ride to some place that's going to help them, but I'm not going to I'm not going to give them anything that helps them in their drug use. And I think, giving a drug addict money or an alcoholic money on the side of the street, I think is horrible. If you want to give money, go give it to the Boise Rescue Mission. Give it to a group that's going to actually help people, not help kill them.
Yeah.
I remember at the mission too. I remember the first guy that I seen die of a fentanyl overdose. It was on Thanksgiving morning. We were doing breakfast, and I was given at the mission every morning before breakfast. They a programmer or somebody from the public will come and just do a small uh, sermon type thing in the morning. And I was doing it, and this guy comes in, and they can wait outside, or they can come in and listen. But you can't start eating until we're done. And this guy comes in, and he's really kind of rude, and he was annoying me because I'm trying to talk, and he's like mixing his coffee and making a lot of noise, and then he like says it, the F word as loud as you can say it, and I'm like, what is going on? And then he just falls over and dies.
Oh my gosh.
And the ambulance comes, and they put this machine on him, like that does chest compressions.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, the crowd comes in, and they're like stepping over him to go get breakfast. It's like nothing's even going on, and I was just in shock. And it made me at that time realize, especially after he found out he was dead, because they hauled him away, that the world just keeps going, whether you're here or not. And it gave me like a different perspective of, and then it also showed me that the people that are in that world don't care about you at all. I mean, the other drug addicts that were coming in to go get some food that morning stepped right over you to go get what they wanted while you were dying. And it is sad. And that's the truth, especially in the drug world. You think you might have friends, but none of them care about you. You have no friends in that world. But when you come to the rescue mission, or you come in to Celebrate Recovery, and you meet those people, those are going to be your true friends. I know guys would drive. If I called somebody and said, "Hey, I need a ride to Northern California right now," I got friends that would do it in a heartbeat. Wouldn't even ask a question. But in that other world, that doesn't exist. You want to think it does, because I think people that are addicted to drugs, they really, a lot of them just want friends. They want people to love them, and so they seek that. And in that world, those people are going to destroy you. They're going to take everything you have, and they're going to destroy you.
Do you guys ever do anything for like the prison work?
We have a Celebrate Recovery that's out at the prison. I think 10 Mile Christian does a prison ministry. I don't know if they still do Celebrate Recovery, but there was somebody that is starting Celebrate Recovery at the prison. Yeah, yeah, and I know they do it in Cottonwood too, for the riders,
Yeah.
people on riders. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Do you know how long after your brother was sent up to Seattle that he had overdosed?
It was probably about 4 months.
Oh, so he'd been up there a minute.
Yeah, yeah. He called me, and I have some guilt here too. He called me. It was before my wife and I had gotten married. We were living in separate houses still, and he called me from Spokane, because when he left Grangeville, he had to go to Spokane. It was a layover there, and then straight to Seattle. And when he called me from Spokane, I knew he was high. I knew it. And the house that I lived in at the time, my calls would get lost. He borrowed a phone from somebody in Walmart, and he wanted me to Walmart him some money, and I wouldn't send him any money. And he was mad at me and hung up on me, or we got disconnected. And then I never heard from him again after that. For a while, I've worked through a lot of this, but I felt guilty that I sent him to the drug capital, the fentanyl capital of the world, to go get clean. Because I knew he couldn't come to Boise again, because he'd kind of ruined his welcome at that when he left. But and I'd heard good things about the Union Gospel Mission there. I just didn't realize the drug fentanyl issue was so bad there. But I have no control over that.
That's a
He made
hard
that
one.
choice.
That's a hard one with family members when they're on drugs. I have a brother. He's clean now, but back when he used to live with me back in like 2021 area, he had a couple issues inside the house, and he had gotten 2 DUIs within a month, and just he ended up stealing some pills at one point from us, and there was just too many things that added up, and I was just like, hey man, I can't have you around my kids anymore, and I felt it's a hard situation because I literally just had to kick my brother out on the streets. He didn't have anywhere to go. He lived in his car for a while. I would call him up, and I was just like, hey, how you doing? Just making sure you're alive, kicking, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'm just living in my car at a Walmart parking lot. And I'm like, well, I'm glad it's summer, roll your windows down or something,
Yeah.
like just checking on you. And he ended up getting really addicted to heroin that summer. And then he lived under the bridges and all these things. And it like crushed me. You could just see it in his face. I seen him at Thanksgiving that year, and he was with this new hood rat chick, and they were just both on heroin together really bad. And everybody knew it. It was like nobody was talking about it though. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and him and we were still on bad terms, so we weren't really talking even at the dinner table there. And then that summer, then he was living in Utah for a little while, and then ended up coming back up to Idaho, I guess, for a little bit just to paint. He was on like a painter's crew or something, but he was getting strung out. And him and his chick ended up getting arrested, and it was for an unrelated charge. It was like breaking and entering or something. It wasn't the drug charge, but he ended up doing some time just in jail. They gave him like I can't remember exactly what the sentence was that he gave him, but later on we ended up reconciling and stuff, and he told me like, that was the best thing you could have ever let me do was like hit rock bottom. And I remember that was such a hard time for me. And I felt guilt, especially seeing him like on Ada County
Mm-hmm.
and just being like, I remember dropping him off like at the Casablanca downtown Boise or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you just know that spot's like,
Yeah.
I was just trying to help him out. And, he ended up actually leaving his phone in my car when I dropped him off. So I was already halfway back to Nampa, and my mom calls me and it's like, your brother left his phone in your car. Can you check and see? And so it was, and it was unlocked. So I'm looking through it and I'm just seeing like all of the drug activity. And like
Mm-hmm.
at that point, like his chick was like prostituting herself out and
Mm-hmm.
like just for drug money and everything. And I was like really sad just to see how dark things had gotten.
Yeah.
And, but he had to hit rock bottom, like, and then he did some time and ended up, finally getting his life back together. But like he had to just hit that rock bottom. And I see too many parents and family members in general, but just will always be bailing out their kids and not
Yeah.
letting them hit rock bottom or like,
I feel bad for my mom. My mom made that decision with me that, especially once I was in the mission, she never thought that I was going to finish. She prayed that I would, but she never thought that I would. But she made the decision, I think, with the help of that counselor that I had, because she knew him, that she was just going to be hands off, and she was hands off until I graduated the program. Like there might have been a phone call or two, but we didn't. She did not want to. She'd been lied to, stolen from, and for so many times and so many years that she didn't want anything to do with me until I figured it out, and it worked. That worked for me. So she was doing the same thing with my brother. Um, I've said it a few times, but addicts manipulate and lie, and my brother was really good at that. And so she was going to go that same route that she did with me, and now she's got a lot of guilt, and because of him dying. But I don't. That is the only. That's the way I feel about it. I think we need to love them, but if giving them money and all this other thing is hindering it, that's not love. I mean, if it's prolonging their addiction by giving them money, that's not love. Um, so I think we need to love people through their recovery or their addiction, but we can't be feeding into it. And I think that's where you're right. A lot of parents go wrong that way. Um, Tough love, I think, is what a lot of people call it. And from my experience, that's the only thing that works. Um, they have to, they have to figure it out themselves. They cannot have people bailing them out every time because it just prolongs it. And then what ends up happening when you prolong it is they die.
Yeah.
And I think jail is amazing for helping people hit rock bottom. It was for me a few times, but I I think that is what I see. Most people that are in recovery that stay in it, they did a long stint in jail. I know I'm not talking years, but long enough to get them their head cleared out and figuring things out, or a long term recovery program where it's a year or better. I know like the Renaissance Ranch, that's like a year long program. That one is really good. These ones where you go for 30 days, really that's just to get you detoxed. Um, but it's recovery is for me it's a lifelong journey, and I've pounded that in my head, because I may not feel like using, but my long term recovery is helping other people. So um, I'm going to do that forever, and by doing that, it just helps me stay sober longer.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great quote that I've heard, and it's like when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, then you'll change.
Yeah,
And like that's the thing is if you're always getting bailed out of these situations, then
yeah,
you know that it's not really that painful,
yeah,
because it's like, yeah, I'll just go get money from someone else, or very manipulative, and you can
yeah,
get the things you need, but like once you're cut off, that becomes your rock bottom. That becomes like no one's coming to help me. I have to save myself at this point.
yeah. There's nothing more humbling than being in the mission without a single cent, um, and depending on them to feed you, house you, clothes. Like I didn't even have clothes. I had nothing when I got there, and then to look at my life now is just mind blowing to me. I never thought that I would. I have an amazing job. I have an amazing wife. I'm able to give back to the community. I never thought that'd be possible, and and I don't think it would continue to be possible if I didn't have a relationship with God. And that's where I keep going back to is like Jesus is he he was with me that whole entire time without me even knowing it. Now looking back, like you said earlier, looking back, it all makes sense. But in that time, none of it made sense. Um, I I I think about my dad all the time. My dad's a huge part of my story. I love my dad. Um, I don't want it to be portrayed like he didn't love us. He did. I think, and I think we hear this a lot too, is our parents did the best they could with what they knew. And, I really miss my dad. I think about him a lot. I always tell my wife that because I love the taste of beer, that when I get to heaven, I'm convinced that Jesus is going to allow me to have a beer because in heaven there's no sin, and so I won't be able to get drunk. But so that's another one of my things is when I get to heaven, I'll have a beer. I don't need one here, but I look forward to seeing my dad again, and um, and my mom. She's wonderful. She lives in Lake Havasu, and she'll be up here in a few weeks to spend a month. And I'm really grateful for her, and I'm grateful that she was strong enough to push back and not give in. Because that I think at that point, you're so weak and you're still a manipulator that if I was able to grasp any kind of straw, I would have done that, and that would have hindered what God had planned for me. So I think as we help people, we need to stay strong and not step in the way of what God has planned for that person, because sometimes when we think we're helping, we're actually stepping in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. How long did it take for you and your mom to rebuild your relationship?
Um, a couple years probably. I don't. I think she wondered if you know,
She
because
want to see that this was, yeah.
she'd seen me really good after drug court and in drug court where I was sober, and she trusted me again. But it was a few years, um, and I think it's all back now, especially after we went through with what we went through with my brother. Um, I lost a cousin too to fentanyl overdose just not too long after my brother. Um, it was a heart attack in his 20s, but I'm pretty sure that drugs were probably involved the way in drinking. And most of my cousins are alcoholics. Um, it still runs rampant in my family, but all I can do is just keep walking the way that I walk, and hopefully it'll rub off on some of them. My kids, my 20-year-olds, I don't ever see pictures of them out drinking and partying and things like that. So I think they're doing good. Um, so yeah, we actually have a teen program that we started at Celebrate Recovery in CUNA. Not all of them have it, but we have a program where we walk them through the steps, just like the adults. They have a curriculum that they run through, um, and most if the parents are coming to Celebrate Recovery, there's usually some kind of damage to your kids too. So we encourage them to bring their kids. Our young kids go through something similar, not as intense, obviously, but our but we try to run them through the same kind of lessons that we run through as we go through the steps, so that when they leave and they're driving home, if say the lesson was on um, forgiveness, the kids have talked about forgiveness as well, as the parents. So,
As a dad and a recovered alcoholic and drug user yourself, what advice would you give to other parents that are parents of teenagers or anything that would be going through these temptations to get them to not go down that life?
um, consequences. I mean, I bet if you called your local Ada County deputy and said, "Hey, I want you to talk to my kids about this," or I know lots of drug addicts that'll talk about it. I know lots of police officers that'll talk about it. I don't think that we need to scare them straight, but they need to see what happened. Yeah, there's a whole other world out there that most of the public doesn't know about. That, like I talked about, that hotel world. There is 1,000 people in this valley that wake up in a hotel room without knowing what they're going to do that next night. They go out and hustle and steal and sell drugs to to come back to that hotel again or another hotel that night. Take your kids to the mission. Have them serve dinner. Have them talk to the people. You can go out and sit next to the people that are the homeless people that are there and eat with them. That that I think our kids and the public needs to see that other side of the world that happens right here underneath their nose, right in this valley. We're lucky that that they don't allow tents in the streets here, and it's been a fight. The Boise Rescue Mission has taken it all the way up to the Supreme Court with if there's beds, or the Boise City, Boise, whatever it was, if there's beds available at a facility in Boise, you're not allowed to camp on the street. So they make sure there's always a bed available, and that's why we don't have tents in Boise or Nampa. So, but taking them and going and serving, I think serving is a huge deal. It shows your kids um, how fortunate they may be. It shows them the other part of society that maybe they don't want to go down that road because that's where they're going to end up. Because all drug addicts and alcoholics end up in jail, in hospital, or dead, and that's a fact. I mean, you have alcoholics that may be able to maintain, but once you go over that edge, you're either going to die, you're going to be in jail, or you're going to be in prison.
Do you see a lot more men than women going through this addiction?
Um, yeah, I would say for the worst part of the addiction, because I do think the women have a few more opportunities to get help than some men. Um, once you get into the the light or the city light that the rescue mission runs is an amazing program for kids and women. You can have your kids live with you in that program. So there are more opportunities, I think, for women. I think the single men sometimes are the last ones that society wants to help, which is understandable. I mean, when children are involved. Um, but the rescue mission now has a facility where it was a nursing home. It's called Next Step, where they'll actually bring a family unit back together in one facility, so men and women
Wow.
and children can live together again. And that was lacking here. It's never been available in Idaho, and they just opened that facility last year, and it's been really good. It was an old nursing home they turned into a bunch of different apartments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So on the off chance that somebody's watching this, scrolling on TikTok, and they're in the middle of their recovery, or they want to start recovery and they're high right now, like what's a good place for them to start? They don't have a church or anything. They don't believe in God right now, but they want to get clean. Like, what's a good thing for them to just start?
I would start by going to meetings, whether it be AA, NA, or Celebrate Recovery. Get plugged in. There's going to be people that are going to plug you into other places, whether it be church. I think church is like number one. It's the best place to get community, to serve, to be around people that are like minded, Christ minded. So yeah, definitely those things. And there's a Celebrate Recovery almost every night in the Valley, Monday through Saturday. There's a Celebrate Recovery almost every night. So yeah, get plugged in, or reach out. In those places, you're going to find sponsors and they're going to help you. If you're in full blown addiction and you need to get clean, call the Allenbaugh House. A friend of mine, or a guy that I know who's become a friend, reached out to me a couple months ago. He went through the Allenbaugh House, ended up going to a rehab, and he's a couple months clean right now. They're an amazing resource. You have to be in Ada County to use the Allenbaugh House. If you're homeless, just tell them you're homeless in Ada County, whether you're over here in Cannon County or not. Tell them you're homeless in Ada County, and they'll get you in. And it's a safe place to medically detox. There's nurses there. Terry Riley runs it. I went through there twice, and it is really amazing that you can be. The doors are locked. People can't come in. You can leave when you want, but it's just a safe place to get clean medically. They'll help you sleep and monitor you, especially when you're coming off opiates or alcohol. You need to be in a safe place where you're not going to die. So, yeah, those places, and you can reach me at celebraterecoverycuna@gmail.com, or just message you, and they can give my phone number.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. What's next for you, man?
um, we have kids that are like all in on livestock shows. We show sheep at livestock shows. We're gone like every other weekend somewhere in the West Coast or in the West. So we're doing that. We've got a couple more years of that left, and then I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing what I've done for 9 years and stay sober, and then do whatever I can to help my kids be successful. I got a daughter that's going to be a teacher, that's going to college right now, so that's cool. Yeah, I'm really blessed. I seek nothing more than what God has already given me. Honestly, I think we all would like more money or more things, but
Worldly things.
honestly, I have everything I need right now. I just for years I was like, I've got all this stuff. I don't. How am I going to keep it? At the first few years of sobriety, like I'm waiting for the walls to crash down, and I don't. That's not a very fun life to live. So I'm good.
Yeah, I think once you could start living for godly things and not worldly things,
Yes.
you're chasing the right things at that point. You're
Hmm.
not, because it's an interesting thing because there's always things that you say, once I get this, it's gonna make me happy, and then
Yeah.
you get that thing, and you're like, oh, I want more.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're just gonna keep chasing. It's like the dog chasing a car. It's like, what's he gonna do once he gets it?
Yeah.
It's and it's good. I think it's good though to keep wanting more because you're gonna be aspiring to do other things, but just make sure that it's Christ centered and it's a
Yes.
servant mindset rather than what you can do for yourself. Like if you want to help 10
Absolutely.
people and then you want to help 100 people, like
Yeah.
keep going. But
I
just
one day I hope to open sober living houses. Um, and we actually started a business, um, New Life Transitional, named after the New Life program. Um, but then housing prices like skyrocketed, so we've kept the name, but we haven't dove into that yet. But that is once our kids are gone, my wife and I both have a passion to do that and have it a Christ Center transitional living place. So that's on our horizon. We just need God to show us what to do.
yeah, just trust God was playing.
Yeah.
All right, man. We'll just leave it with what's your favorite scripture?
Jeremiah 33:3. Come to me and I'll show you great and mighty things which you do not know. Um, and that's the truth. Like, since I've became a Christian, he just keeps showing me more and more and more things about him, and about my life, and about this world that I had no understanding of.
That's amazing that you said that because I was watching a video this morning and it said that it was like a mom and she was saying that her dad taught her that was Jesus's phone number was Jeremiah 33:3 and it was like call unto me or something.
Come
Maybe it's
on to me.
a
Yeah,
different
call unto me and
translation.
I'll show you great and mighty things which you do not
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's hilarious that you just said that because
Yeah.
that's like crazy. It's
That's
funny
God
because
working.
I've started a new thing that I'm gonna do every day, but I post on my story on my Facebook that I'm reading the Bible at 3:33 in the morning, like
That's
every day.
awesome.
That's so it's funny.
One thing that, and I don't know, I don't understand the Holy Spirit completely at all. But uh, when I first became a Christian, I was like, God, just show me some things so I know you're real. And he would, and it's weird to even talk about, but like license plate numbers with triple numbers or quadruple numbers, or like I would pray at a stoplight, God, show me a sign. I want to feel you right now. And then I open up and I have a picture of it on my Facebook, this truck turning onto the freeway with this trailer on it that says Jesus saves. Huge
Wow.
billboard.
Here's your
And
sign. Yeah.
here's your sign. And I remember at one point, God was showing me so much, especially that first year when I was in the mission. It was like I had to pray, Lord, you're showing me too much. I think I'm going crazy. And now I'm praying, Lord, I want to go back to
Yeah.
that first year. Show me. Um, so yeah,
Well, when
yeah.
Vanessa was on here, we were talking about angel numbers because I was talking to her about like I see 11s everywhere, like
Uh-huh.
11s, 22s, 33s, and she was saying that she was going through the same thing a lot after her sister had passed away, and
Yeah.
she was seeing all these different things, and then her nephew or something told her about angel numbers and just these repeating numbers, and so it's amazing, like just how that works.
It is amazing. And I think also part of it is, when we focus on certain
Right,
things, we're going to see them. But that doesn't take God out of the situation.
right.
Like, my wife and I at 11:11, if we happen to look at our phone and it's 11:11, we always send each other a heart or a kiss or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's almost daily. Like, and we're not consciously waiting for it to turn 11:11.
Right.
But I think he loves us so much, um, and he wants to communicate with us so much. We're just so busy that we don't see it, and he wants us to do those things.
Yeah.
Um, the more that I'm in tune with him, the better my day is, and the cooler things that he shows me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, my favorite pastor online to listen to is Joby Martin at 1122 Church. So
Oh, right on.
yeah,
I'll have to check that out.
yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I love your story, and I'm sure it's gonna impact many. And we'll just send this out everywhere we can because I mean, if you
Awesome.
could save one person from any drug overdose or anything, they could change their life. You never know who that person could change generationally. And that's what I'm really
Yes.
big on, is just changing those generational curses.
Yes.
So
Amen.
I appreciate you sharing your story and just being completely open. So
Yeah,
thank
thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, man.